Most people believe marriage is simple. Two people, bound by love, sharing life together. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Marriage is never just about two. Deep inside each partner lives another figure, a hidden self, an invisible presence that silently shapes every word, every fight, every touch. And unless you face this hidden part of yourself, love will feel like a battlefield rather than a sanctuary. Pause, let the weight sink in. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But what Jung discovered is that marriage doesn't just bring two personalities together. It brings four, you, your partner, and the shadows within both of you. And unless we understand this deeper truth, even the most passionate love can slowly turn into resentment, confusion, or despair. Think about it. When you first fall in love, everything feels magical. You see your partner as perfect, almost divine. Their laugh, their eyes, the way they walk, it feels like destiny. But then something shifts. Small arguments begin. Tiny habits annoy you. Old wounds resurface. You wonder, did they change? Or did I? This is where Jung's psychology offers us a map. He believed that love is not just about romance, chemistry, or even compatibility. Love is a mirror of the psyche. Every relationship exposes hidden parts of yourself, the light and the dark. In other words, when you marry someone, you are not just marrying them. You are also marrying their unconscious mind, their hidden fears, their shadow, their inner anima or animus. And they, in turn, are marrying yours. That's why love feels so intense, so dangerous, and so transformative. Because it's never just two people at the altar. It's four. Picture a wedding ceremony. The bride and groom stand face to face. Everyone in the room sees two people. But Jung would say, you're looking at four. The bride, with her conscious self, smiling radiant. But beside her stands her shadow, her suppressed emotions, her unlived potential, her fears of abandonment. The groom, confident and proud. But behind him is his hidden self, his insecurities, his childhood wounds, his unspoken desires. When vows are exchanged, it's not just promises between two. It's an invisible covenant between four inner worlds. And the rest of the marriage journey is about discovering, clashing, and, hopefully, integrating these hidden figures. This explains why so many relationships fail. Not because people don't love each other, but because they don't know themselves. They are fighting battles they cannot see. Projection, shadow, unresolved trauma, and blaming their partner for the war within. Think about how often lovers say, "You've changed. You're not the person I thought you were. Why are you acting like this?" The truth is, they're not just meeting their partner. They're meeting their partner's unconscious. And unless they learn to recognize it, love becomes a constant cycle of misunderstanding. So when Jung says, marriage is not about two but four, he's not being poetic. He's being brutally honest. True love requires us to meet not only the person we adore, but also the parts of them they cannot see. Their shadow, their hidden wounds, their inner opposite. And here's the paradox. The very things that frustrate us in our partners often hold the key to our own growth. The shadow we meet in them is often the mirror of what we've denied in ourselves. In the next part, we'll go deeper into what these four figures really are, the conscious self, the shadow, the anima, and the animus, and how they silently shape every relationship. Because until you know who is really sitting across the table from you, you cannot truly love. When two people fall in love, what do they really bring into a relationship? On the surface, it looks simple. Two individuals, two personalities, two lives merging into one. But Jung teaches us something profound, that when we enter into marriage or a deep partnership, we don't just bring ourselves into the relationship. We bring our whole psyche, our conscious personality, yes, but also our unconscious, the hidden shadows, the unspoken wounds, the archetypal energies, the masculine and feminine parts within us that we barely understand. This means marriage is never really just two people. It is, in fact, four. Each partner comes with a conscious self and an unconscious other, each with masks they wear in society, and each with an inner world that is often unseen even to themselves. Think about it like this. The person you fell in love with is not only the actual person standing before you, but also the projection of your inner psyche onto them. When you are enchanted by their beauty, kindness, or strength, you're not just seeing them. You're also seeing a reflection of your own anima or animus, the inner archetype of love that lives inside your unconscious. This is why the beginning of love feels so magical, almost unreal, because in truth, it is partly unreal. We are not only loving the other person, but also loving the part of ourselves we see reflected in them. But here lies the problem. Projections don't last. Eventually, the illusion fades. The perfect prince or princess we thought we married starts to reveal their flaws. And we begin to feel betrayed, when in fact, it was never betrayal. It was reality coming into focus. This is why Jung insists a successful marriage requires us to become aware of the four people in the room, the two outer personalities, and the two inner psyches each partner carries. If we ignore the unconscious, our shadows, our inner opposites, then the marriage will slowly be consumed by misunderstanding, resentment, and unmet expectations. But if we acknowledge them, we can transform marriage into a profound journey of self-discovery. Jung once said something radical. When two people marry, for are involved, the man and his unconscious feminine counterpart, and the woman and her unconscious masculine counterpart. At first glance, this sounds abstract, even confusing. But let's break it down in a way that feels real. The man and his inner feminine, Anima. Every man, Jung taught, carries within him an inner feminine image called the Anima. She is not an actual woman, but a psychic figure made of his deep emotional life, his longing, his intuition, his capacity for love and imagination. When a man falls in love, it is often his Anima that awakens, projected onto the woman he desires. She seems to embody all his unspoken dreams. She is not only herself, she is also carrying his soul image. This is why, in the early stages of romance, a man may feel overwhelmed with devotion, poetry, even obsession. He believes he has found the other half of his soul. But truly, much of what he sees is a reflection of his own inner feminine shining back at him, the woman and her inner masculine animus. Likewise, every woman carries within her an inner masculine figure, called the animus. He is not an actual man, but a psychic structure, her drive, her authority, her rationality, her voice of inner conviction. When a woman falls in love, it is often her animus that stirs. The man she loves is not only himself. He also carries the weight of her projections. He may seem like a hero, a savior, a man of deep strength and wisdom. She feels protected, inspired, perhaps even completed. But again, much of this is her own inner masculine at work, cloaked in the image of the partner she has chosen, the four-party drama. So in every marriage, there are truly four beings interacting: the man's conscious personality, the woman's conscious personality, the man's anima, his inner feminine projected onto his wife, the woman's animus, her inner masculine projected onto her husband. And here lies the tension. When life grows ordinary, when the honeymoon fades, when bills and children and routine enter the picture, the projections begin to collapse. The man suddenly sees that his wife is not only the enchanting muse of his imagination, but also a real woman with flaws, moods, and limitations. The woman begins to realize that her husband is not the flawless hero she dreamed of, but a human being with weaknesses, fears, and imperfections. This is the moment so many couples stumble. They believe love has died, but in truth, something deeper is being asked of them. Marriage, Jung reminds us, is not about holding on to the illusion of perfection. It is about enduring the collapse of projection, and then choosing to love the real person who stands before you in all their humanity. It is only here that authentic love begins. When Carl Jung wrote about the psyche, he often described it as a house with many rooms. In a marriage, this means that two people never truly enter into union as just two personalities. Instead, they bring with them their entire psychological world, their shadows, their unconscious projections, and their inner archetypes. And among these, two particularly powerful archetypes shape how we love: the anima and the animus. Jung believed that every man carries within him an inner feminine, the anima, and every woman carries within her an inner masculine, the animus. These figures are not conscious at first. They live in the depths of our psyche, but they come alive in relationships. When a man falls in love, often it is not just a real woman he sees. He also projects onto her the qualities of his anima. She becomes not only herself, but also a mirror of his own inner feminine world, his dreams, his emotions, his intuition. Likewise, when a woman falls in love, she often projects her animus onto the man. He becomes not just who he is, but also the voice of her inner strength, logic, and authority. This is why Jung suggested that marriage is not just two people. It is, in fact, for presences in constant dialogue: the man's conscious self, the woman's conscious self, the man's anima, his inner feminine, the woman's animus, her inner masculine. Every marriage, then, is a conversation between these four, sometimes harmonious, often chaotic. The problem of projection. Here lies the challenge. When we project our inner figures onto our partner, we do not see them clearly. Instead of seeing who they are, we see who we want them to be. A man might expect his wife to be endlessly nurturing, gentle, or mysterious because his anima demands it. A woman might expect her husband to be always strong, decisive, and protective because her animus projects those qualities onto him. But reality soon cracks these illusions. A wife may be tired, sharp, or independent. A husband may be vulnerable, confused, or indecisive. And when our partner fails to live up to the ideal image we projected onto them, disappointment sets in. This is why so many relationships feel euphoric in beginning, when projections are their strongest, and then begin to crumble when reality intrudes. What we thought was soulmate love was often the voice of our anima or animus speaking through the other person. Imagine a husband and wife in conflict. On the surface, it looks like two people arguing about household responsibilities, money, or children. But underneath, something deeper may be unfolding. The man's anima may be angry because he feels emotionally unseen. The woman's animus may be frustrated because she feels unheard or powerless. The argument, then, is not just about the dishes or the bills. It is about these inner figures clashing, demanding recognition. This is why Jung said that until we make these unconscious forces conscious, we will be possessed by them. Marriages fail not only because of practical problems, but because unseen psychological forces are at play, creating misunderstandings that neither partner fully grasps. Healing through awareness. But here lies the beauty of Jung's insight. Once we recognize that marriage involves 4 voices, not 2, we can begin to heal. The husband learns that when he feels overwhelming disappointment in his wife, it may not always be about her. It may be his anima speaking, the inner feminine in him that longs for tenderness or connection. Instead of demanding it from his wife unconsciously, he can cultivate it within himself. Through creativity, empathy, or reflection, the wife learns that when she feels overpowered or silenced, it may not only be her husband's fault, it may be her animus speaking, the inner masculine in her that longs to be expressed. Instead of fighting her partner for it, she can develop her own voice, her own strength, her own clarity. In this way, marriage becomes less about blaming the other and more about inner growth. To truly love, Jung suggested, is not to merge blindly with another person. It is to enter into a dialogue between the conscious selves and the unconscious figures within. It is to recognize when we are projecting and when we are seeing the other as they are. In this sense, marriage becomes a crucible, a container in which each partner is challenged to face their inner world. The partner is not only a companion, but also a mirror, reflecting back the hidden parts of our psyche that we would rather avoid. This is why Jung once said, marriage is the most difficult of all relationships, because it is not only the union of 2 people, but also the meeting of 2 unconscious worlds. And yet, it is precisely in this difficulty that the possibility of transformation lies. For if we can embrace the 4ness of marriage, the man, the woman, the anima, and the animus, then love becomes more than romance. It becomes a path of individuation, of wholeness. If you ever wonder why the person you love the most can also be the one who hurts you the deepest, Carl Jung would say, look to the shadow. The shadow represents a hidden, unacknowledged, and often repressed parts of ourselves, the aspects we'd rather not see, but that inevitably seep into our relationships. In marriage, this means that you aren't only meeting your partner's best self, their kindness, charm, and dreams. You're also meeting their insecurities, fears, jealousies, and unhealed wounds. Think about it. When couples fight, it's rarely just about dishes left in the sink or someone being late. Beneath the surface, those small sparks ignite much larger fires. Fears of being ignored, feelings of inadequacy, or old wounds from childhood resurfacing in the heat of the moment. And here's the paradox. These shadows are not mistakes. They are essential opportunities. Marriage, in Jung's view, is like holding up a mirror to yourself every single day. Your partner reflects not just who you are, but also who you're avoiding being. When they criticize you, it might sting because they're pointing at a truth you've buried. When they withdraw, it may trigger your deepest abandonment fears, push you to face what you've been hiding from all along. But this isn't just about conflict. The shadow also holds untapped energy, creativity, passion, courage, that we suppress out of fear of judgment. A partner who challenges you, who irritates you, may also be the one unconsciously inviting you to reclaim those forgotten parts of yourself. Jung believed that when we deny the shadow, it controls us in the background. But when we face it, individually and together, it becomes fuel for transformation. Marriage, then, is not just about romance or companionship. It's a crucible where love forces us to confront our darkness so that something greater can emerge. And here's the striking truth. Couples who learn to dance with their shadows, who see conflict not as a sign of failure, but as a teacher, often discover a deeper intimacy than they thought possible. Because in facing the shadow together, they stop pretending to be perfect and instead learn to be human, fully and vulnerably with one another. When Jung looked at the psychology of relationships, he introduced one of his most fascinating ideas, the anima and animus. The anima is the unconscious feminine side of a man. The animus is the unconscious masculine side of a woman. These inner figures live deep in the psyche, shaping how we see the world, how we dream, and most importantly, how we fall in love. Let's break this down. When a man falls in love with a woman, Jung believed that he often projects his anima onto her. He doesn't just see her, he sees the qualities of his inner feminine reflected in her. She becomes the embodiment of something that already exists within his unconscious. The same happens in reverse. When a woman falls in love, she projects her animus onto the man. She sees in him the strength, wisdom, or boldness of her inner masculine. This is why attraction can feel so mysterious, even irrational. Why do we sometimes feel drawn to people who don't make sense for us on paper? Because on some unconscious level, we're not just choosing a partner. We're choosing a mirror for our anima or animus. But here's where it gets complicated. When the projection fades, as inevitably does, we're left facing the reality of our partner as they truly are. The man realizes that the woman is not the perfect dream goddess of his anima. The woman realizes the man is not the flawless hero of her animus. This is often the moment when relationships enter their first great crisis. The honeymoon period ends. Disillusionment sets in and partners ask, "Have I made a mistake?" But Jung would say, this moment is not the end. It is the beginning. Because marriage isn't just about living with another person. It is about reclaiming our projections, recognizing that what we loved in the other was also something within ourselves, waiting to be discovered. The anima teaches a man to embrace his sensitivity, creativity, and intuition. The animus helps a woman develop her strength, assertiveness, and clarity. So, the real purpose of love is not to complete us with another person, but to awaken what is incomplete within us. Marriage becomes a training ground, a space where the anima and animus come alive, clash, and finally integrate. And when they do, something remarkable happens. Instead of demanding perfection from our partner, we begin to see them as they are, human, flawed, but deeply real. This is where love transforms from infatuation into intimacy, from projection into partnership, from illusion into truth. For Jung, marriage was never just a social contract, nor merely a matter of romance or convenience. It was something far deeper, a sacred union, a crucible for the transformation of the soul. Why sacred? Because within marriage, the unconscious comes alive. Every conflict, every attraction, every disappointment. It is not just between you and me. It is the drama of the psyche unfolding. It is the anima and animus clashing, the shadows surfacing, the self calling us toward growth. Jung called this process individuation, the journey toward becoming whole. And he believed that marriage, more than any other human relationship, was the arena where individuation could be tested, refined, and realized. Think about it. Alone, a person can grow. But in isolation, the psyche can avoid its deepest wounds. Only when we are confronted by another, by someone who sees us, who challenges us, who refuses to play along with our illusions, only then are we forced to confront the hidden parts of ourselves. Marriage, in this sense, is not meant to make us happy all the time. It is meant to make us whole. The sacredness of marriage, then, lies not in perfection, but in its ability to awaken the unconscious, to hold up the mirror to our projections, to force us to wrestle with our shadows, to call forth the integration of anima and animus. It is a fire, and through that fire, something new is forged. Jung would say, if you enter marriage expecting endless bliss, you will be disillusioned. But if you enter it as a spiritual path, as a mystery in which two souls become mirrors, teachers, and challengers to one another, then marriage becomes something far greater than comfort. It becomes a sacred vessel for transformation. And here's the paradox. By embracing this deeper purpose, happiness may actually come not as fleeting passion, but as the quiet joy of authenticity, intimacy, and wholeness. Marriage, then, is not just about two people. It is about four, you, your partner, and the hidden figures of anima and animus. Together, they form a living alchemy. And through that alchemy, love becomes not just a feeling, but a path toward the self. So now we arrive at the heart of Jung's insight. Marriage is never just me and you. It is always more. Within every couple lives a hidden community. The man and his anima, the woman and her animus, Four voices, four energies, four inner worlds, all interacting, colliding, merging, and reshaping each other. When we ignore this truth, relationships falter. We demand affection from our partner, unaware that much of what we are seeking actually lies within ourselves. We blame, we project, we withdraw. But when we recognize the fourfold nature of love, everything changes. We begin to see conflict not as failure, but as initiation. We realize that attraction is not only about the other person, but about the hidden parts of ourselves they awaken. We see marriage not as the end of the journey, but as the beginning of individuation, a mirror through which the self calls to grow. And here lies Jung's ultimate lesson. Love is not simply about finding the right partner. It is about awakening the soul. The task of marriage, then, is not just to love your partner, but to confront the inner figures they stir within you. Not just to stay together, but to stay awake. Because in the end, marriage is not about two. It is about four. And only by honoring the dance of those four can love fulfill its deepest purpose, the transformation of the human soul. If Jung was right, then every relationship is far more mysterious than it seems. Every embrace, every argument, every longing, it is the unconscious speaking through us. And perhaps the greatest act of love is not only to cherish another person, but to walk beside them on the path of wholeness. Marriage is not about two. It is about four. And in that truth lies both the challenge and the sacred beauty of love itself. If you found this journey into Jung's vision of love meaningful, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes in love's deeper purpose. Until next time, remember, real love is the alchemy of the soul.